Welcome to episode 36, the Collison Brothers and the Founding of Stripe. This is an outline of episode 36. There are 3 reasons to study Stripe and the Collison Brothers. First, at age 28 and age 26, they are the youngest self-made billionaire in the world. Second, they are small country big billionaires. Ireland is a relatively small country. Third, the global drive to online payment is just beginning. The early years. Patrick Collison was born in the city of Limerick, Ireland in 1988. His younger brother, John Collison, was born in 1990. They grew up in Limerick, Ireland. They went to Castletroy College, Ireland. When Patrick was 8 years old, he took classes in computer science at the University of Limerick. He would begin programming at age 10. In 2005, at age 16, Patrick Collison won the Young Scientist and Technology Exhibition Award in Ireland. Patrick Collison started university at MIT. The Collison brothers worked with 2 Oxford University graduates, and the 4 created an online company called Octomatic, which tracks eBay auctions. In 2008, Octomatic was acquired by Communication.com of Canada for $5 million, making the Collison brothers teenage millionaires. In October 2009, the Collison brothers started Stripe.
In October 2009, John and I were walking home from dinner in Potrero in San Francisco, and we'd been sort of kicking around this idea of starting an online payments company. We were fascinated by the concept of internet payments because sort of as the web spread around the world and more deeply into our lives through mobile devices, it seemed obvious that there should be a universal payments infrastructure for the internet, that it should be really easy to transact online. And John just sort of turned to me as we were walking along and he said, let's just do it. It probably won't be all that hard. He actually said that. And so I said, all right, I'm in.
The first coding of Stripe was started in the cafes of Buenos Aires.
And we sort of thought that the internet was moving in a different direction. We decided to target makers, the people actually building things. We thought that payments was really just a technology problem, and we wanted to make it easier for people to participate in the internet economy. And so we worked nights and weekends. We were in college at the time. I was at MIT, and John was up the street at Harvard. And we'd code in the evening between problem sets and papers. January rolled around, which in Boston is unbelievably freezing, so John and I decided to go somewhere to work for the month. We'd read a few blogs that claimed that Buenos Aires was a really great place to get things done. It's cheap, and it's warm, and it's friendly. Everything opens really. We really wanted to have production users shaping the product as early as possible. The user was a friend of ours, Ross Boucher.
Peter Thiel and Paul Graham were the first investors.
But luckily, Paul Graham and Peter Thiel are crazy, in a good way. And they invested a little bit over $200,000 between them.
Remember when they said, oh, we're going to take on the financial industry, I think we were kind of like, do you realize how hard this is? And like, you don't have connections. But they were intrepid. They were like, well, we don't have connections, we'll find connections. It shows how determined they were.
On acquisition of customers.
They call this in the beginning of Stripe. Stripe does like real-time payments. You just have this API, and you say, I want to process a transaction, and bang, it works. Well, the way that used to work in the very beginning was what Stripe called the man behind the curtain strategy. They had a merchant account, right? And you would do this thing, and they would like call somebody up and do the transaction behind the scenes. It looked to you like it was happening in real time, but it was all essentially fake. With like humans in there. And like it worked because they didn't have enough volume.
Adding more services.
Computing power, but also attaching a bunch of services on top of that. Is that sort of your bigger strategy?
So we sort of have been attaching all these services on top, and there's kind of really high uptake on those services kind of across the portfolio. The difference between us and AWS is that we don't charge for them separately, and we don't brand them as separate products. Or kind of like with AWS, it's very segmented. This is kind of actually part of the Amazon organizational philosophy, that they're all sort of these discrete services that kind of connect together. We think, and this is partially because of the domain where it's sort of everything needs to be very nicely integrated, that it should be sort of largely a cohesive whole. And this comes back to your API design question and how you sort of get that right. But I mean, whatever, leaving the kind of
the innovation clock cycle.
leaving the kind of business question aside of how you charge for it, yeah, I think it's kind of it's almost exactly the same thing in the sense that hosting is the foundational component for EC2, payments is the foundational component for Stripe, and then with that you build these additional services.
Taking over the world.
But by default, they're reaching anyone on the internet.
Yeah, and part of the sort of Stripe thesis is obviously that sort of the rise of developers and the fact that sort of most of the important internet companies are yet to be built. But another part of it, and I think as a society, this has sort of become we've kind of retreated a little bit from this idea over the last decade or so, but Stripe is absolutely just a bet on globalization. Like, we think it's good, we think more of it should happen, we think more of it is going to happen, and that sort of, like, the promise of the internet is that sort of, it's kind of a transcendence over physical geography. It shouldn't matter which country you're in, and we just kind of haven't really delivered on that promise.
What have I learned today? Stripe is trying to solve online payment problems, making it easier and faster to set up payment in minutes instead of days and weeks. Also, Stripe is having many add-on services. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your comments and questions below. My next video will be 10 lessons of Stripe. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.